Deep within Earth's primary defense command, Lieutenant Hindwell Park sat bolt upright at her monitoring station. Her eyes widened as the quantum arrays lit up with an unusual signal pattern she had never seen before. The young officer's fingers flew across the holographic interface, trying to make sense of the incoming data stream. The massive underground command center hummed with the steady drone of countless systems working in harmony. Officers and technicians moved with purpose between stations, their faces bathed in the soft blue glow of their displays. The air was cool and carried the faint scent of recycled oxygen typical of underground military installations. Lieutenant Park's heart raced as she decoded the signal. It was a distress call, but not just any distress call. It came from the Cerulean system, over 30 light-years from Earth. The Ceruleans had been humanity's allies for over 2 decades, known throughout the galaxy for their peaceful nature and incredible advances in bioengineering. They had never before asked Earth for military aid. "Sir," she called out, her voice carrying across the command floor. Priority 1 signal from Cerulean. Captain Do-Yeon Kim was already moving, his weathered face set in grim lines as he crossed the command center in long strides. Other officers turned to watch as he approached Park Station. The captain had served in the Defense Command for 20 years, and everyone knew he had close ties with the Cerulean ambassador. "What's the situation, Lieutenant?" he asked, leaning over her shoulder to study the incoming data. Park's fingers brought up additional displays, showing tactical overlays of the Cerulean system. "Sir, they're reporting massive fleet movements in their space. Multiple unknown vessels, larger than anything we've encountered before. They're under attack by a hostile force we've never seen in our databases." The captain's eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical displays. The unknown ships showed up as massive red clusters, surrounding Cerulea's orbital installations like predators circling their prey. "What's the status of their defenses?" "Not good, sir. Their orbital defense platforms are failing one by one. Their planetary shields are holding for now, but they're reporting unprecedented stress on their power grid." Park brought up more detailed scans. "The enemy vessels appear to be using some kind of energy-draining weapons we've never seen before." Captain Kim straightened up, his jaw set firmly. "Get me a direct line to the Defense Council. Priority Alpha." Within minutes, the massive screens at the front of the command center lit up with the faces of Earth's Defense Council, 12 men and women who commanded humanity's military forces. They listened intently as Captain Kim presented the situation, their expressions growing more serious with each passing moment. The council members exchanged glances, and quick, quiet discussions took place off-screen. It took them less than 10 minutes to reach a decision. Record time for such a high-level military commitment. Fleet Admiral Song, the head of the council, leaned forward in his chair. "The decision is unanimous. We will deploy the Ghost Fleet." A hushed silence fell over the command center. The Ghost Fleet was humanity's most advanced and feared battle group, a collection of ships that had never been defeated in combat. Their very mention was enough to make most potential enemies reconsider their actions. "Transmit the authorization codes," Admiral Song commanded, "and send word to the Ceruleans. Help is coming." Lieutenant Park's hands shook slightly as she transmitted the codes. She had heard stories about the Ghost Fleet, but had never seen them in action. The fleet was said to possess technologies that seemed to defy the laws of physics, crewed by the best officers Earth had to offer. As she worked, more data streamed in from Cerulean. The enemy fleet was expanding its attack, methodically destroying defensive installations and communication relays. Whatever these attackers were, they moved with frightening efficiency and purpose. Captain Kim placed a reassuring hand on Park's shoulder. "Send a message to Cerulean. Tell them to hold on. Tell them the Ghost Fleet is coming." Throughout the command center, officers and technicians worked with renewed purpose. Supply chains were activated, quantum communication relays were cleared for priority transmissions, and battle plans began forming in the strategic computers. Deep in the darkness of space, in a classified location known only to a handful of people, 15 ships of the Ghost Fleet received their activation codes. Their quantum drives hummed to life, Their advanced weapon systems began warming up, and their crews moved to battle stations with practiced efficiency. The Ghost Fleet was awakening, and soon the unknown attackers would learn why Earth's military was both respected and feared throughout known space. But even as the mighty fleet prepared for battle, Lieutenant Park couldn't help but wonder if they would arrive in time to save their allies. She watched as more red dots appeared on her tactical display, marking the fall of another Cerulean defense station. The enemy was moving faster now, as if they sensed that reinforcements were coming. The race against time had begun, and the fate of an entire civilization hung in the balance. Admiral Zhu Li stood on the bridge of the EDF Phantom, her eyes fixed on the massive holographic display that filled the front wall. The Ghost Fleet's flagship was a marvel of human engineering, its sleek design housing some of the most advanced technology ever created. Around the Phantom, 14 other warships moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls seemingly swallowing both light and sensor signals. The bridge was unusually quiet, filled only with the soft hum of machinery and the occasional beep from the various control stations. The crew worked with practiced efficiency, their movements precise and purposeful. Years of training and combat experience showed in their calm demeanor, even as they prepared for what could be their most challenging mission yet. Combat coordination at optimal levels, reported Commander Minso Kang from the tactical station. His fingers danced across the holographic controls as he monitored the fleet's status. All ships report ready for quantum jump. Admiral Li nodded, her expression thoughtful. She had commanded the Ghost Fleet for 5 years, leading them through countless battles and emerging victorious each time. The fleet had earned its name through more than just its stealth capabilities. Under her command, they'd become legendary for appearing out of nowhere, striking with devastating precision, and vanishing before the enemy could mount an effective response. "Status report on the quantum drives," she ordered, her voice carrying the quiet authority that had earned her the respect of every officer under her command. Lieutenant Buell responded from the engineering station. "Quantum cores are at full power, Admiral. All ships report synchronized and ready for jump. We can reach the Cerulean system in 3 quantum leaps." The Admiral walked slowly around the command deck, studying the readouts at each station. The EDF Phantom was the most advanced ship ever built by human hands. Its quantum drive could tear holes in space-time itself, while its weapons could reduce a small moon to debris. But it was the ship's stealth systems that made it truly special, technology that could make a vessel kilometers long virtually disappear from all known detection methods. "Show me the fleet formation," Li commanded, and a detailed hologram appeared in the center of the bridge. 15 ships, arranged in a perfect arrow formation. Each ship was unique, designed for specific roles in combat. The heavy cruisers, Shadow and Wraith, protected the fleet's flanks, while the smaller, faster destroyers, Spectre and Phantom, served as scouts and rapid response units. Commander Kang brought up another display, showing the latest intelligence from Cerulean. "The enemy fleet continues to grow in number, Admiral. They've already destroyed most of Cerulean's outer defense platforms. Our allies are holding them back with their planetary shields, but those won't last forever." Admiral Li's expression hardened. The Ghost Fleet had faced many enemies, but something about these attackers felt different. They moved with an efficiency that suggested a hive mind or some form of collective consciousness. That could be both an advantage and a disadvantage in battle. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "Prepare for quantum jump sequence. Combat crews to battle stations." Throughout the fleet, klaxons sounded as thousands of crew members moved to their combat positions. Weapon systems powered up, shields strengthened, and stealth systems engaged at maximum capacity. The Ghost Fleet was about to live up to its name once again. "Admiral," called out Lieutenant Ha, "I'm detecting unusual quantum fluctuations from the enemy fleet. Their technology. It's like nothing we've ever encountered before." Li smiled slightly. "That works both ways, Lieutenant. They've never encountered anything like us either." The bridge crew felt the familiar tension building as the quantum drive spooled up. The space around the fleet began to distort, reality itself bending as the massive engines prepared to tear a hole through space-time. "All ships report ready," announced Commander Kang. "Quantum jump calculations complete. We can execute on your command." Admiral Lee took her command chair, her voice steady and clear as she gave the order. "Execute quantum jump. Let's show these invaders why they call us the Ghost Fleet." The stars around them seemed to stretch and twist as 15 of humanity's most powerful warships vanished into quantum space. They left behind only empty void, heading toward a battle that would test even their legendary capabilities. In the darkness between stars, the Ghost Fleet moved like shadows through quantum space, their stealth systems making them virtually invisible, even during faster-than-light travel. Each ship was a masterpiece of human engineering. Combining raw power with subtle sophistication, they carried enough firepower to devastate a solar system, yet could slip past the most advanced sensor networks without leaving a trace. As they traveled, Admiral Lee studied the tactical data from Cerulia again. Whatever these enemies were, they were about to learn a harsh lesson about humanity's defenders. The Ghost Fleet hadn't earned its fearsome reputation by accident. They were the deadliest ships ever built, crewed by the finest officers Earth had to offer. The quantum drive hummed louder as they approached their first jump point. Soon, they would emerge in the Cerulia system, bringing with them humanity's answer to any who would threaten their allies. The Ghost Fleet was coming, and with it, the promise of swift and decisive action against those who had dared to attack humanity's friends. The Ghost Fleet materialized at the edge of the Cerulia system, their quantum drives sending ripples through space-time as 15 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel. The scene that greeted them was pure chaos. Massive bioorganic ships swarmed around Cerulia's orbital stations like hungry locusts, their twisted forms unlike anything human eyes had seen before. From her position on the bridge of the EDF Phantom, Admiral Lee watched the tactical displays with growing concern. The enemy vessels were enormous, each one easily twice the size of Earth's largest battleships. Their hulls seemed to pulse with an inner light, and tendrils of energy connected them to each other in a complex web. "Those are Nexan ships," Lieutenant Haijin Choi announced from her science station, her fingers flying over the controls as she analyzed the sensor data. "They're a collective consciousness species. According to our databases, they consume everything in their path. Resources, technology, even entire civilizations." The bridge crew watched in horror as one of the massive alien ships wrapped its tendrils around a Cerulean defense platform. Energy coursed through the connections, and within moments, the platform began to dissolve, its materials being absorbed into the Nexan vessel. Admiral Lee's expression hardened as she watched the destruction. Then it's time they learned about individual will. Battle formations. Show them why we're called the deadliest fleet in known space. Commander Kane's hands moved across his tactical console, sending encoded commands to the rest of the fleet. The Ghost Fleet's ships began to spread out, each taking up their designated combat positions. Their dark hulls seemed to absorb the light from Cerulia's sun, making them look like holes in space itself. "Enemy fleet numbers at 300 vessels," reported Lieutenant Choi. "They're organized in a hive mind structure. Each ship is connected to all others through some form of quantum entanglement." "That will be their weakness," Admiral Lee said quietly. "No hive mind can match the creativity and adaptability of individual human minds working in harmony." She turned to her communications officer. "Send word to all ships. Activate ghost protocols. Full stealth engagement." Throughout the fleet, advanced stealth systems engage. The ships seemed to fade from view, becoming nearly invisible to both eyes and sensors. Only the flagship remained visible, a deliberate choice to draw the enemy's attention. The Nexan ships noticed the new arrivals. Their formation shifted, hundreds of bioorganic vessels turning to face the human fleet. Energy tendrils reached out across space, probing for information about these unexpected opponents. "They're scanning us," Lieutenant Choi reported. "Their technology, it's trying to interface with our systems." Admiral Lee smiled grimly. Let them try. Our quantum firewalls were designed for exactly this kind of situation. She stood from her command chair, her voice carrying across the bridge. All ships, prepare for combat maneuver Alpha 7. Let's show these collective minds what individual human ingenuity can do. The EDF Phantom's weapons came online. Plasma cannons, quantum disruptors, and systems so classified that most of the crew didn't know their true capabilities. Around them, the invisible ships of the Ghost Fleet did the same, each captain ready to execute their part of the battle plan. A massive Nexan vessel, easily 5 times the size of the Phantom, moved toward them. Its hull pulsed with sickly green light, and energy tentacles reached out hungrily toward the human ship. They're trying to establish a neural link, Lieutenant Choi warned. They want to add our consciousness to their collective. Perfect, Admiral Lee replied. That's exactly what we wanted them to do. Execute countermeasure protocols. Let's give them a taste of human resistance. The Phantom's quantum core pulsed, sending out a carefully calculated wave of energy. When it hit the Nexan ship's probing tendrils, the effect was immediate. The alien vessel recoiled as if struck, its energy web disrupting momentarily. First blood to us, Admiral Lee announced. Now, Ghost Fleet, show them what we can really do. Execute attack pattern Delta. The battle was about to begin in earnest. Humanity's most advanced warships against a hive mind that had never known defeat. The Cerulean system was about to witness a clash between 2 completely different philosophies of warfare. The collective strength of a hive mind against the individual brilliance of human commanders working in concert. As the Ghost Fleet moved into attack position, Admiral Lee watched the enemy ships with calculating eyes. The Nexans were about to learn why Earth's fleet had never been defeated, why even the mention of the Ghost Fleet was enough to make most potential enemies reconsider their actions. They were about to learn about human determination, about the strength that comes not from being part of a collective, but from being individuals who choose to work together. The first shots were about to be fired in what would become one of the most legendary battles in human history. In the fleet's tactical chamber aboard the EDF Phantom, holographic displays filled the room with a 3-dimensional map of the ongoing battle. Commander Jae-hyun Yoon stood before the assembled ship captains, his hands moving through the display as he highlighted key points in their defensive formation. The Nexan fleet continued its assault on Cerulea's outer defenses, their massive bioorganic ships moving with an unsettling synchronization. Each movement was perfectly coordinated, each attack precisely timed. But Commander Yoon had noticed something crucial about their behavior. Their ships operate as one organism, he explained, manipulating the hologram to show the energy patterns connecting the enemy vessels. Every action, every response comes from their shared consciousness. But that's not just their strength, it's also their weakness. The room was silent as the other captains studied the display. Years of combat experience showed in their focused expressions as they analyzed the tactical situation. Through quantum-encrypted channels, other ship commanders watched from their own vessels, their holograms seated among their physical colleagues. Commander Yoon zoomed in on a particular section of the battle space. We'll use our quantum disruptors to create zones of interference, split them apart, make them fight as individuals. Look here. He highlighted several key points in the enemy formation. These nodes are the primary connections in their neural network. Admiral Lee stood up from her seat, walking through the holographic display to stand beside Yoon. They've never faced an enemy that thinks like us, she said, her voice carrying the weight of command. Each ship captain in this fleet can operate independently, yet coordinate perfectly. That's humanity's true strength. The tactical display shifted, showing the planned positions for each ship in the Ghost Fleet. The formation was unlike anything they had used before. A complex, 3-dimensional pattern designed to exploit the Nexans' dependence on their hive mind. The EDF Phantom will lead the first strike. Commander Yoon continued. We'll target this primary node here, using our main quantum disruptor. The moment their network shows signs of strain, Shadow and Wraith will move in from opposite vectors, creating a triangulated field of quantum interference. Captain Minho Ryu of the Shadow leaned forward, his hologram flickering slightly. What about their adaptive capabilities? A hive mind this sophisticated must have some form of self-repair mechanism. That's where the second phase comes in, Yoon responded, bringing up another tactical overlay. While their consciousness is fragmented, each ship group will target specific sections of their fleet. We're not just attacking their ships, we're attacking their ability to think as one entity. The plan was bold, perhaps even reckless by conventional military standards. But the Ghost Fleet hadn't earned its reputation by following conventional tactics. Each ship captain studied their assigned role, asking questions and suggesting refinements to the strategy. Admiral Lee watched her commander's work, pride evident in her expression. These were the finest officers Earth had to offer, each one capable of independent action, yet trained to work in perfect coordination with their fellows. Unlike the Nexans, their strength came not from forced unity, but from chosen cooperation. Time is critical, Commander Yoon emphasized, showing the latest data from Cerulea's defenses. The planetary shields are holding, but they won't last forever. We need to execute this plan within the next 6 hours if we want to save the Cerulean civilization. The captains began discussing specific tactical details, approach vectors, weapon configurations, timing sequences. Each ship would need to perform its role perfectly for the plan to succeed. The margin for error was minimal. Lieutenant Choi's voice came over the comm system. Admiral, we're detecting changes in the Nexan formation. They appear to be preparing for another major assault on Cerulea's shields. Admiral Lee straightened, her decision made. Then we move now. All ships, return to your commands. We execute this plan in 30 minutes. Remember, we're not just fighting for Cerulea. We're showing the galaxy what happens when someone threatens humanity's allies. The tactical chamber emptied quickly as captains rushed to prepare their ships. Commander Yoon remained behind with Admiral Lee, making final adjustments to the battle plan. The holographic display showed their ships moving into their initial positions, each one a deadly weapon about to be unleashed. It's audacious, Yoon said quietly, using their greatest strength against them like this. Admiral Lee nodded, watching as the final preparations were made. That's what they don't understand about humans, Commander. We don't just adapt to our enemies. We learn from them, find their weaknesses, and turn their advantages into disadvantages. The Ghost Fleet was about to attempt something never before seen in space combat. A coordinated attack on an enemy's consciousness itself. If they succeeded, it would change the nature of warfare in the galaxy. If they failed, they might lose not only their ships, but also their allies. As the final minutes ticked down, Admiral Lee returned to the Phantom's bridge, her mind already focused on the battle to come. The time for planning was over. Now it was time to show these Nexans why Earth's fleet was both respected and feared throughout known space. The battle unfolded like a deadly dance across the star-filled void. The Ghost Fleet's ships moved with impossible precision, their dark hulls flickering in and out of visibility as they wove between the quantum interference zones. Each calculated strike targeted critical nodes in the Nexan fleet's vast communication network, their weapons precisely calibrated to disrupt the alien hive mind. From her command chair on the EDF Phantom's bridge, Admiral Lee watched as the first signs of confusion spread through the enemy ranks. The massive Nexan vessels, once moving in perfect synchronization, began showing subtle signs of disarray. Their movements became less coordinated, their responses slightly delayed. Primary target showing signs of neural disruption, Lieutenant Choi reported, her eyes fixed on the sensor readings. The quantum interference is working exactly as planned. The EDF Shadow emerged from stealth directly behind a cluster of Nexan ships, its weapons blazing with devastating effect. Before the enemy could respond, the warship vanished again, reappearing moments later at a different attack vector. Each strike was precisely calculated to cause maximum disruption to the hive mind's neural network. "Keep pressing," Admiral Lee ordered, her voice steady and determined. They're starting to fragment. Don't give them time to adapt. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, coordinating the fleet's movements through encrypted quantum channels. Unlike their enemies, each human ship operated independently while maintaining perfect coordination with their fellows. It was a demonstration of humanity's greatest strength, individual initiative combined with voluntary cooperation. Commander Kang's tactical display lit up with new signals. "Admiral, the Cerulean ships are moving to support our attack. They've recognized our strategy." The remaining Cerulean defense vessels, though fewer in number, began providing supporting fire from their defensive positions. Their weapons, while less advanced than Earth's, were still effective against the now confused Nexan ships. The combined assault was having a visible effect on the enemy fleet's cohesion. Multiple enemy vessels showing signs of neural shock. Lieutenant Choi announced, "Their hive mind is struggling to maintain connectivity across the interference zones." Admiral Lee watched her commander's work, pride evident in her expression. These were the finest officers Earth had to offer, each one capable of independent action, yet trained to work in perfect coordination with their fellows. Unlike the Nexans, their strength came not from forced unity, but from chosen cooperation. "Time is critical," Commander Yoon emphasized, showing the latest data from Cerulea's defenses. "The planetary shields are holding, but they won't last forever. We need to execute this plan within the next 6 hours if we want to save the Cerulean civilization." The captains began discussing specific tactical details, approach vectors, weapon configurations, timing sequences. Each ship would need to perform its role perfectly for the plan to succeed. The margin for error was minimal. Lieutenant Choi's voice came over the comm system. "Admiral, we're detecting changes in the Nexan formation. They appear to be preparing for another major assault on Cerulea's shields." Admiral Lee straightened, her decision made. "Then we move now. All ships, return to your commands. We execute this plan in 30 minutes. Remember, we're not just fighting for Cerulea. We're showing the galaxy what happens when someone threatens humanity's allies." The tactical chamber emptied quickly as captains rushed to prepare their ships. Commander Yoon remained behind with Admiral Lee, making final adjustments to the battle plan. The holographic display showed their ships moving into their initial positions, each one a deadly weapon about to be unleashed. "It's audacious," Yoon said quietly, "using their greatest strength against them like this." Admiral Lee nodded, watching as the final preparations were made. "That's what they don't understand about humans, Commander. We don't just adapt to our enemies. We learn from them, find their weaknesses, and turn their advantages into disadvantages." The Ghost Fleet was about to attempt something never before seen in space combat. A coordinated attack on an enemy's consciousness itself. If they succeeded, it would change the nature of warfare in the galaxy. If they failed, they might lose not only their ships, but also their allies. As the final minutes ticked down, Admiral Lee returned to the Phantom's bridge, her mind already focused on the battle to come. The time for planning was over. Now it was time to show these Nexans why Earth's fleet was both respected and feared throughout known space. The battle unfolded like a deadly dance across the star-filled void. The Ghost Fleet's ships moved with impossible precision, their dark hulls flickering in and out of visibility as they wove between the quantum interference zones. Each calculated strike targeted critical nodes in the Nexan fleet's vast communication network, their weapons precisely calibrated to disrupt the alien hive mind. From her command chair on the EDF Phantom's bridge, Admiral Lee watched as the first signs of confusion spread through the enemy ranks. The massive Nexan vessels, once moving in perfect synchronization, began showing subtle signs of disarray. Their movements became less coordinated, their responses slightly delayed. Primary target showing signs of neural disruption, Lieutenant Choi reported, her eyes fixed on the sensor readings. The quantum interference is working exactly as planned. The EDF Shadow emerged from stealth directly behind a cluster of Nexan ships, its weapons blazing with devastating effect. Before the enemy could respond, The warship vanished again, reappearing moments later at a different attack vector. Each strike was precisely calculated to cause maximum disruption to the hive mind's neural network. "Keep pressing," Admiral Lee ordered, her voice steady and determined. "They're starting to fragment. Don't give them time to adapt." The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, coordinating the fleet's movements through encrypted quantum channels. Unlike their enemies, each human ship operated independently while maintaining perfect coordination with their fellows. It was a demonstration of humanity's greatest strength, individual initiative combined with voluntary cooperation. Commander Kang's tactical display lit up with new signals. "Admiral, the Cerulean ships are moving to support our attack. They've recognized our strategy." The remaining Cerulean defense vessels, though fewer in number, began providing supporting fire from their defensive positions. Their weapons, while less advanced than Earth's, were still effective against the now confused Nexan ships. The combined assault was having a visible effect on the enemy fleet's cohesion. Multiple enemy vessels showing signs of neural shock. Lieutenant Choi announced, "Their hive mind is struggling to maintain connectivity across the interference zones." A massive Nexan ship, its bioorganic hull pulsing with disturbed energy patterns, turned its weapons on the Phantom. But before it could fire, the EDF Wraith appeared from nowhere, its quantum disruptors tearing through the enemy's neural connections. The Nexan vessel reeled, its movements becoming erratic as it lost contact with the hive mind. Admiral Lee leaned forward in her chair, studying the tactical displays intently. "They're trying to adapt. Shift to pattern Delta 3. Don't let them reestablish their neural links." The Ghost Fleet responded instantly, their formation shifting like shadows in starlight. Each ship moved to new attack positions, maintaining the complex web of quantum interference while pressing their advantage. The space around them was filled with weapons fire and the ethereal glow of disrupted neural energy. Enemy fleet showing increasing signs of fragmentation, Commander Kang reported. "Their outer formations are losing coherence. Individual ships are starting to act independently." This was exactly what they had hoped for. The Nexan fleet, mighty and unstoppable when acting as one mind, was being forced to fight as individual vessels. And in ship-to-ship combat, they were no match for the skilled commanders of the Ghost Fleet. A sudden burst of energy from the largest Nexan vessel caught everyone's attention. "They're attempting to establish a new neural hub," Lieutenant Choi warned, "trying to reorganize their consciousness through a different network configuration." Admiral Lee's response was immediate. "All ships, execute Maneuver 7. Target that command vessel with everything we have." The Ghost Fleet's attack was devastating in its precision. Ships appeared from multiple vectors simultaneously, their weapons concentrated on the enemy's attempted neural reorganization. The massive Nexan vessel shuddered under the assault, its attempts to establish a new hive-mind connection failing under the coordinated attack. From their defensive positions, the Cerulean ships added their firepower to the assault. Their energy weapons, designed for defense rather than attack, proved surprisingly effective against the destabilized Nexan vessels. Enemy fleet coordination dropping below 30%, Commander Kang announced. "They're losing their ability to function as a collective." The scene before them was chaos, but a chaos that favored the human fleet. Nexan ships, cut off from their hive mind, began moving erratically. Some fired at random, others attempted to retreat, while still others simply drifted, their crews seemingly unable to function without the collective consciousness. Admiral Lee allowed herself a small smile. The plan was working even better than they had hoped. The Nexan fleet, which had never known defeat, was experiencing something entirely new. The terror of individual thought and action. "Maintain pressure on their remaining neural nodes," she ordered. "Show them why individual will always triumph over forced unity." The battle continued to unfold, but its outcome was becoming clear. The Ghost Fleet, humanity's deadliest force, was proving why they had earned that title. Against the backdrop of Cerulea's blue-green world, they were teaching the Nexan hive mind a lesson it would never forget. if it survived to remember it all. The moment had come for the final strike. Admiral Lee's eyes narrowed as she studied the tactical display, watching the Nexan fleet's increasingly erratic movements. Their once perfect formation had devolved into scattered groups, their hive mind connection severely compromised by the Ghost Fleet's relentless attacks. All ships, execute Pattern Omega. Admiral Lee commanded, her voice carrying the weight of authority that had led the fleet to countless victories. The Ghost Fleet responded immediately, splitting into 3 precise strike routes. Each group targeted a different sector of the now disorganized Nexan force, their movements coordinated with lethal precision. The EDF Phantom led the central attack group, its massive form cutting through space like a blade. Around it, 4 other ships moved in perfect formation, their weapons already charging for the final assault. The ship's quantum core hummed with power, feeding energy to systems that most civilizations couldn't even comprehend. Commander Taeyin Ru's voice crackled over the comm from the EDF shadow. "Ma'am, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations in their command ships. They're losing cohesion. The hive mind is breaking down completely." The scene before them was unprecedented. The massive Nexan vessels, each one a city-sized construct of bioorganic technology, began moving without any coordination. Some ships fired their weapons randomly into space, while others collided with their own allies, unable to maintain proper spatial awareness without the hive mind's guidance. "All ships, concentrate fire on their remaining command nodes," Admiral Lee ordered. "Don't let them re-establish neural connections. This ends now." The Ghost Fleet's attack was devastating in its execution. Ships appeared and disappeared like phantoms, their advanced stealth systems making them nearly impossible to track. Each strike was precisely calculated to cause maximum disruption to what remained of the Nexan neural network. Lieutenant Choi's voice was tense with excitement. "Admiral, the enemy fleet's neural pattern is collapsing. They're experiencing total synaptic failure across their entire network." The largest Nexan command ship, a behemoth that dwarfed even the Phantom, suddenly began emitting pulses of chaotic energy. Its bioorganic hull writhed as if in pain, tendrils of neural energy lashing out randomly into space. "Their primary consciousness is fragmenting," Commander Kang reported from Tactical. "They're losing all higher functions. Individual ships are reverting to basic survival protocols." Admiral Lee watched as years of training and preparation came to fruition. The Ghost Fleet's strategy had worked better than anyone could have hoped. The Nexan hive mind, which had conquered countless systems through sheer unified force, was experiencing something it had never encountered before: complete neural isolation. Some enemy ships began to retreat, their movements clumsy and uncoordinated. Others continued fighting, but without the hive mind's guidance, they were no match for the skilled human commanders. Several Nexan vessels simply went dark, their crews apparently unable to function without the collective consciousness. "Group 2, target those retreating vessels," Admiral Lee commanded. "Group 3, maintain pressure on their command ships. Central Group, prepare for final strike pattern." The space around them lit up with weapons fire as the Ghost Fleet executed their orders. Quantum disruptors, plasma cannons, and weapons so advanced they defied conventional description, all focused on the remaining Nexan resistance. Commander Ryu's voice came through again. "Admiral, we're detecting some kind of buildup in their remaining command ships. They might be attempting some sort of last-ditch effort to reconnect their neural network." "Not today," Admiral Lee responded firmly. "All ships, execute final strike protocol. Full power to quantum disruptors. Let's end this." The Ghost Fleet moved as one, their attacks synchronized with impossible precision. Quantum disruption fields overlapped, creating zones of pure chaos that tore through what remained of the Nexan neural network. The effect was immediate and devastating. The enemy command ships, massive as they were, began to break apart under the assault. Not from physical damage, but from the complete collapse of their neural systems. Without the hive mind to coordinate their complex bioorganic technology, The ships simply couldn't maintain their structural integrity. Enemy fleet reaching critical neural failure, Lieutenant Choi announced. Their consciousness is completely fragmenting. They can't maintain cohesion. Admiral Lee stood from her command chair, watching as victory unfolded before them. The Nexan fleet, which had threatened to consume the entire Cerulean system, was now nothing more than a scattered collection of dying ships, their mighty hive mind shattered beyond repair. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "Maintain attack positions but hold fire unless directly threatened. Let's see if any of them survive with individual consciousness." The battle was effectively over. The Ghost Fleet had proven once again why they were considered humanity's deadliest force. They had not just defeated an enemy, they had completely destroyed their way of existence, proving that individual will and coordinated action would always triumph over forced unity. As the remaining Nexan ships either fled or went dark, Admiral Lee allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The Cerulean system was saved, and the galaxy had just witnessed a demonstration of humanity's true strength, not just their advanced technology or tactical skill, but their fundamental belief in the power of individual choice combined with voluntary cooperation. The last of the Nexan ships vanished into quantum space, their retreat marked by erratic energy signatures. The Ghost Fleet regrouped around Cerulea's remaining orbital stations, their dark hulls now bearing the scars of intense combat. 3 Earth ships had sustained severe damage, and 2 Cerulean defense stations lay in ruins, but the victory was absolute and unquestionable. Admiral Lee stood in the vast chamber of the Cerulean High Council, her formal uniform pristine despite the recent battle. The room's crystalline walls reflected rainbow patterns of light, a stark contrast to the utilitarian design of Earth's military vessels. Around her, the Cerulean Elders' crystalline forms shimmered with subtle patterns of light, their way of expressing strong emotions. "We came because you are our allies," she stated simply, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Earth protects its friends. It has always been this way, and it always will be." The Cerulean Elder's crystalline form pulsed with bright colors as it spoke, its translated voice carrying tones of deep gratitude. "You have saved our civilization, Admiral Lee. The galaxy will remember this day, when Earth's deadliest fleet became its greatest protector." The other Elders' forms shimmered in agreement, their colors shifting in complex patterns. Each was processing the reality of how close their civilization had come to extinction and how the human fleet had turned certain defeat into victory. Commander Kang stood respectfully behind the Admiral, holding a datapad with preliminary battle reports. The numbers told an impressive story. Over half the Nexan fleet destroyed, their hive mind shattered beyond repair, and the remainder scattered across the sector in disarray. "The Ghost Fleet performed beyond our highest expectations," Admiral Lee continued. "But the credit also goes to your defense forces. Their support was crucial to our strategy's success." The Chief Elder's form sparkled with a pattern that the translation system interpreted as profound respect. "Your fleet's approach was unlike anything we have ever witnessed, to turn an enemy's greatest strength into their downfall. This is something our historians will study for generations." Reports were already streaming in from across known space. The battle had been observed by numerous civilizations, and its implications were sending shockwaves through diplomatic channels. Potential aggressors were hastily reassessing their plans. The message was clear. Earth's fleet wasn't just deadly, it was unstoppable. As Admiral Lee prepared to return to her ship, a young Cerulean approached, its form glowing with the bright, clear colors of youth. "Admiral," it spoke through the translator, "is it true that your ships can think independently yet fight as one? How is this possible without a hive mind?" Lee smiled, recognizing the genuine curiosity in the question. "It's what makes humans unique," she explained. "We choose to work together, to coordinate our actions while maintaining our individual thoughts and decisions. It's harder than forced unity, but it makes us stronger." Back aboard the EDF Phantom, repair crews were already at work addressing the battle damage. The ship's quantum core hummed with its familiar energy, a sound that had become comforting to its crew over countless missions. Lieutenant Choi approached with updated intelligence reports. "Admiral, we're receiving messages from multiple sectors. The Nexan remnants are in full retreat, avoiding all populated systems. Several other potentially hostile species have suddenly become very interested in diplomatic relations with Earth." Admiral Lee nodded, walking through the corridors of her flagship. Crew members they passed stood a little straighter, pride evident in their bearing. They had just participated in a battle that would be studied in military academies for generations to come. In the ship's tactical chamber, Commander Yoon was already analyzing the battle data, identifying ways to improve their strategies even further. The Ghost Fleet never rested on its laurels. Each victory was a chance to learn and adapt. The view from the bridge showed Cerulia below, its blue-green surface now safe from the threat that had nearly consumed it. Around the planet, ships from both fleets moved in careful coordination, beginning the process of rebuilding what had been destroyed. As the Ghost Fleet prepared for their return journey to Earth, Admiral Lee took one last look at the Cerulean system. The battle had proven something she had always believed, that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their advanced technology or weapons, but in their ability to think independently while working together for a common cause. The message to the galaxy was clear. Earth's allies were under its protection, and any who threatened them would face the consequences. The Ghost Fleet had earned its fearsome reputation not through conquest or intimidation, but by standing firm in defense of those who needed help. As they engaged their quantum drives for the journey home, Admiral Lee knew that this victory would change the balance of power in known space. Earth had demonstrated not just its military might, but its commitment to protecting its allies. The galaxy would indeed remember this day, not just for the battle that was won, but for what it represented, the power of individual will combined with collective purpose.